What do you do with a story like this? 6 husbands, all of them dead, and one woman right in the middle. No convictions, no confessions, just rumors, records, and a legacy dripping with suspicion. Her name was Elizabeth Evans Dale, but around here, folks start calling her the Black Widow of Hazel Green. Some called her dangerous. Others said she was just a woman with terrible luck and too many funerals. But here's the thing, the stories didn't fade with time. They grew louder, weirder, and some of them, honestly, they got a little too detailed to be coincidence. So I went digging through probate files, land deeds, court records buried in county archives, and what I found wasn't folklore, it was evidence. There's one document in particular, real, dated, and official, that may explain why so many of her husbands ended up in the ground. It doesn't answer every question, but it opens a few that no one ever thought to ask. And once you see it, you understand why people are still whispering her name 150 years later. We're not chasing ghosts through graveyards today. This one's happening right here at my desk, with nothing but a coffee, a Wi-Fi connection, and a digital paper trail full of secrets. And hey, if you want to help me keep the coffee flowing while I dive into these rabbit holes, there's a link below. No pressure at all, but it really does help. It's a trail of breadcrumbs, marriage records, court filings, dusty newspaper clippings, and a whole lot of whispers. Hazel Green, Alabama, early 1800s. Small town, big secrets, and right in the middle of it all, a woman named Elizabeth Evans Dale. Now, depending on who you ask, or which book you grab off the shelf, Elizabeth was either cursed or calculating. According to True Tales of Madison County and the Haunted House of Hazel Green, death didn't just follow her, it practically moved in. We're talking husbands, children, maybe even a few lovers. If Southern Gothic had a poster child, she might be it. But here's the frustrating part, the facts. They don't make this easier. In fact, the more you learn, the murkier it gets. Let's walk through this together, step by step, from 1812 to 1851. 39 years, 6 marriages, 6 funerals. Elizabeth was born in 1795 and died in 1866. And somewhere in between, she managed to outlive every man she married. At a certain point, you stop calling it coincidence and start wondering if the wedding vows came with a countdown timer. The record says she was born in Worcester County, Maryland. But it's what happened after she got to Alabama that really starts to raise eyebrows. She was just 17 when she married her first husband, Samuel G. Gibbons, in 1812. 18 years later, he was dead. Died on July 14, 1830 in Centerville, Tennessee. She was 34, no scandal, no sickness worth noting, just a widow. If this was all we had, you never blinked twice. But the next year, she marries again to husband number 2, Philip Flanagan. October 3rd, 1831. Elizabeth is 35. By March of 1832, he's dead. That's less than 6 months of marriage. He died in Madison County, Alabama. Land records suggest he farmed in Hazel Green. But again, no red flags, just another grave. So at this point, you might call it bad luck. But bad luck doesn't usually show up 4 more times. 16 months later, November 6th, 1833, Elizabeth marries again. Husband number 3, Alexander Jeffries. She was 38, he was 61. They had 2 children, William Alexander Jeffries, born 1834, Mary Elizabeth Jeffries, born 1837. More on Mary in just a bit. Alexander Jeffries died in 1838, quietly, no known cause, no scandal, just a line in the record, and life went on. But before we jump to the next husband, there's a detail here that most people skip. In 1843, 2 years after Alexander Jeffries died, Elizabeth signed a deed with a man named Samuel Connor. She paid him $237 for a piece of land. Not just any land. This was the Jeffries plantation. the very one she lived on during her third marriage, and the same land she continued living on through 3 more husbands, 1 lawsuit, and a whole lot of rumors. So what does this tell us? She didn't just inherit this property, she secured it, bought it outright in the 1840s as a widow in Alabama. That's not nothing. Elizabeth wasn't just collecting rings, she was collecting real estate. And as you'll see later, the Connor family doesn't just fade into the background. They show up again in the courtroom and in nervous little letters. So keep that name in your back pocket, Connor, because this deed is not just about land, it's about power and who kept it when the husband stopped breathing. About 3 years later, 1839, Elizabeth marries husband number 4, Robert Alford High. She's 45, he's 43. Married in 1839, dead in 1841. Another fast one. There's a probate file, so we know he had land, maybe some influence, but again, no major investigation, just silence. And here's the part that sticks with me. About 3 years after Robert died, Elizabeth's daughter, Mary, passed away too. Different cause? Maybe. Different timing? Sure. But one more death in a pattern that's starting to feel anything but random. Now, while child mortality was tragically common, Mary's death came not long after her stepfather, Robert, died. And unlike Jeffrey's, there was talk. Some later reports described Robert's cause of death as a sudden swelling that killed him so fast he was buried the same day. Maybe it was just an awful timing, or maybe Elizabeth had a habit of endings that blurred together. William, he lived to be 52. Mary, only 7. So was William just lucky? Or was there something different about him? Roughly 5 years later, in the late 1840s, she marries again. Husband number 5, Absalom Brown. And this one's a mystery. There's a marriage record, then nothing. No death certificate, no grave, no estate. Just the whisper of a man who was buried by night. Quick, quiet, almost like someone didn't want anyone asking questions. That brings us to the last one, her final husband, number 6, Willis Willie Roden Routt. And the one that finally broke the silence. She was 56, he was 49. And when he died in 1851, it didn't just end with another quiet grave. Nope. His death triggered a courtroom fight, Routt versus Tate, a full-blown legal dispute over land, money, and whether someone finally decided it was time to question Elizabeth's track record. Because this is where the whisper stopped whispering and started swearing under oath. 6 marriages, 6 deaths, some of them barely lasted a year. Others were spaced out over 2 decades, just long enough to seem forgettable, until you look at the whole picture. And when you do, the time starts to feel off. Real off. 6 husbands, no charges, and always Elizabeth in the middle. So why didn't anyone look into this back then? Was it fear? Was she protected? Or just good old-fashioned 1800s mind-your-business energy? Because after Routt, that's when things stopped being quiet and everything came crashing into the courtroom. But what about you? Based on what you heard so far, coincidence, curse, or something a little bit more cold-blooded? Drop your theory in the comments. I'm reading every one of them. By the mid-1850s, the whispers around Elizabeth hadn't faded. They evolved. This time, she wasn't the one on trial. That spotlight landed on a man named Abner Tate, Elizabeth's neighbor in Hazel Green. You'd think neighbors would borrow sugar, not body counts, but here we are. In 1856, Tate was charged with murder, conspiracy, and secret burial after 2 men vanished and were later found dead. But Tate had his own theory. He wasn't guilty. He was targeted by Elizabeth. In a 60-page defense pamphlet, which reads less like a legal document and more like a Southern Gothic novella, Tate wrote, her bridal chambers was a charnel house. 6 grinding skeletons already hung. Translation, don't look at me. Look at the woman with the 6 dead husbands. I'm sure it's dramatic, but if you're trying to beat a murder charge, why not throw in a haunted house and a little poetic flair? They weren't just in the same courtroom, they were practically in shouting distance across the fields. Then came a new voice, someone who actually lived with Elizabeth, a man, possibly named Francis, who managed her plantation and witnessed Daniel Bingham's courtship in 1854. At first, romantic, then possessive, then gone. And just like that, another man vanished from Elizabeth's orbit. Starting to feel like deja vu, isn't it? Later that year, Tate wrote a letter to 3 prominent men, James Adams, C.C. Clay, and William Acklin, accusing multiple people of past murders at the Dale home, including a man named John Gordon, who already been arrested once for suspicious death on the property. But Tate closes with the gem. There are many persons who delight in destroying reputations, which is a pretty bold mic drop from a guy handing out Gothic murder allegations like party favors. So was Abner Tate a killer, deflecting flame, or was he the first person brave, or maybe foolish enough to say out loud what half of the town was already whispering? Let me know what you think. Is Elizabeth just haunted by coincidence, or is this pattern way too neat? Drop your theories in the comments, and don't hold back. I've seen wilder takes. The 1856 trial wasn't big. It was front porch gossip with legal cross-examination. Elizabeth Dale wasn't technically on trial, but her name never seemed far from it. The real defendant was Abner Tate, and when Barbara Hazel, a midwife who knew the Tate household well, took the stand, she didn't hold back. She asked to make a statement, and what she said, it rattled the walls. What I have said, I heard in the office. I certainly heard, and what I have said, I saw in the old kitchen. I certainly saw. What I saw in the old kitchen was a powerful weight on my mind and feelings. What I have said, I saw in the yard. I certainly did see. Hazel didn't say who was guilty, but she made it clear. Something dark had happened in the Tate household, and it had stayed with her for years. Then things turned clinical. She was asked about Dr. Davy, a familiar name in the community, connected to both the Tate and Dale families. Was he involved in any of this? Her answers weren't exactly reassuring. Do not know that Dr. Davy was ever concerned with Tate in any of his bad deeds. Bad deeds? Never said that I know of that. Dr. Davy was concerned in these murders. Murders? May have remarked and think I probably have said that Dr. Davy was Tate's right-hand man in some things, but do not now know what I then alluded to. So, not exactly confidence-inspiring. She denied it, then backpedaled. Then she said she didn't know what she meant. And honestly, I don't drag a doctor into a murder trial unless someone thinks he saw more than symptoms. Maybe it was gossip, maybe it was fear, or maybe Dr. Davy knew something and took it with him. Either way, his name didn't fade quietly. But not everyone was buying it. Remember the Connor family? The one who sold Elizabeth the Jeffries property? They weren't about to let Barbara Hazel rewrite the script. William M. Connor fired off a letter to Abner Tate, denying every word. No cowhiding threats, no bundle inspections, no drama. Honestly, if this trial had a modern-day group chat, Connor would have been the guy yelling fake news in all caps. Then came Sarah Poole, dragging in an old story from Mississippi in 1845, something about bundles, medicine, accusations, and a woman named Mrs. McDavid. Her husband, John P. Poole, backed her up. He also added that Barbara once claimed another woman helped cover the smell of a murdered man. You know, totally normal things to chat about on the porch. Then came Dr. Gabriel Davis, finally offering some medical clarity, or so we thought. He testified that Alexander Jeffries, Elizabeth's third husband, died of inflammation of the stomach. But then he casually drops, I saw him the day he died. He did not appear sick. Okay, doc, that kind of changes the vibe. He also said Jeffrey's symptoms matched those of Mr. Brown, husband number 5. Same swelling, same burial speed. And then the Whitakers took the stand, and they brought the thunder. Joseph and Newton Whitaker both said they believed Jeffries had been poisoned. Not suspected, not maybe, straight up believed it. Then came Nancy Whitaker, Joseph's daughter. She didn't see the death happen, but she saw the body, swollen, dark, unnatural. Not, I think. Not, maybe. She said it with her whole chest. So, where does this leave us? Barbara Hazel swore she saw a cover-up. The Connors swore she made it up. The Pools had a bundle of opinions. And the Whitakers, they dropped poison like it was going out of style. And Elizabeth said nothing, wrote nothing, faced no charges, just 6 husbands, and a graveyard full of doubt. So what do you believe? Is this a century-old smear campaign? Or was Elizabeth Dale just one very quiet step ahead of everyone? Vote in the comments. Ghosted by coincidence? Or guilty as legend says? Or still not sure, but I want the movie. I'll be down there reading with popcorn. Elizabeth died in 1866. No grave marker, no final words as far as we know. Just a name in the census. A few court files and a trail of whispers that refused to fade. No diary, no defense, no "here's why I didn't do it" letter. Only silence. And that silence became a canvas for legend. A big, dramatic Southern Gothic kind of legend. Some said she buried her husbands under a giant holly tree. Others claimed she kept their hats in the hallway like trophies, because nothing says "welcome home" like a graveyard souvenir display. And then there's the pamphlet, written by Abner Tate himself, the man who faced her in court and apparently fancied himself part prosecutor, part playwright. He called her the murderer of 6 husbands, said she even tried to kill him. Was it courtroom drama or a warning wrapped in melodrama? Either way, it stuck like a southern summer. The house burned in 1968, but the story survived. Moans in the attic, ghosts in the fields, a woman calling a name nobody remembers. So what do you believe? Was Elizabeth just cursed with bad luck and man who couldn't stay alive? A master manipulator who somehow avoided a single charge? Or just a woman whose life had enough drama to power a century of front porch storytelling? Let me know your theory in the comments, because honestly, this one's still wide open. There are still gaps in this story. Missing records, undiscovered depositions, maybe even a dusty letter in a courthouse basement that hasn't seen daylight in 150 years. And if they surface, you better believe we'll be back faster than you can say coffin-sized storage box. For now, all we can say is this: 6 husbands, no charges, and always Elizabeth in the middle. So who was Elizabeth Evans Dale? Just a woman with truly awful luck? A manipulator who always stayed one step ahead? Or maybe just a name caught in the crossfire between fact and folklore? In the end, it might not be about what she did, but how the story was told. And let's be honest, a good ghost story lasts longer than any headstone. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy peeling back layers of history, myth, fact, and the legend, thick in between, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps this channel more than Elizabeth helped her husbands. Too soon? Maybe. But come on, 6? I'm your host, William, and I'll see you next time on Exploring History for more moments that made history. And maybe a few that never quite made sense.